Good morning again. Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a second subject to you this morning that's of interest to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know, and that is accuracy, with special emphasis, as usual, on a real-world example, something from my own personal experience that I can speak to with authority, hopefully. So I'm going to jump in. Accuracy. What is that? Well, it's hitting the mark, right? Getting as close to the true picture of something in the sense that I'm using the word as possible. For example, it is convenient and simple to explain things with a single cause or reason for them sometimes, but it's not always accurate. And what I mean to say by that is many events, many behaviors have multiple causes, compound reasons for them. And if you're being accurate, pretty much everything has a lot of reasons for it, depending on how deep you look into it. And I don't mean to say that people should plunge down the rabbit hole with reckless abandon, embracing all levels of complexity, because that's madness. You don't want to do that. At some point, we need to simplify enough so that things can be communicated and easily understood. There is kind of a hazard to overcomplicating things, and I'm not really advocating for that, but I am saying that to ignore the complexity of things, to oversimplify, to make them symbolic, can be very hazardous, almost more hazardous than plunging down that rabbit hole. So my example in this case is going to be a comment about the recent trend, and it's recent for me, maybe it's not recent, but I'm seeing a lot of new videos pop up on YouTube by younger people, which, you know, in honesty and in candor, some of them are exhibitionary, a little bit, sensual. And the question becomes, what is the motivation for this? And I'm hearing a lot of different opinions. I'm hearing, first and foremost, an opinion that it's all about the likes. It's about the subscriptions and the attention and the contest between young people for number of likes. And I'm not disputing that, first of all. Whoever says that is absolutely spot on. You're correct. What I'm disputing is that that's the only reason for it, and that that's always the reason for it. I do believe that if you're explaining all of a behavior away with one reason, you're not being fair to a large number of people. And in this case, there is a very natural and important behavior that is being denied expression across the board in our culture, in American culture. And that is the integration of youth with adults in general. In the last several decades, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, but arc back to the subject. In the last several decades, we have seen a devastating segregation of youth online and in person, in reality, in the real world, as we say, where it is not convenient, or it is an exposure to liability, possible complaints or possible lawsuits even, to include youth in various human activities. Now, this all kind of started with bars, alcohol bars, blocking people by law under the age of 21. This has been the case for many, many years. But this set a precedent. This set an example of segregating youth so that adults can partake in toxic behaviors, for lack of a better way to say it. And it seems like the more toxic behaviors we indulge in as adults, the more convenient it becomes to marginalize the youth, to say, well, we're going to have a youth zone at this point. That's kind of what it has come down to. The youth have been marginalized and basically compartmentalized into a zone where nothing adult is allowed to happen there. And there's very little bridge between the two zones. And the effect this is having is catastrophic. And I'm not exaggerating. We are seeing major upticks in suicidal tendencies. We are seeing overprescribed medications for things that are environmental problems that stem from the environment and this segregation in particular. So back to the subject. The subject is accuracy. So to explain away a lot of youth behaviors, young people behaviors in videos and in general, by saying that they're just looking for attention or they're competing for likes or subscriptions, that's part of it, sure. But there's also a natural part of developing and growing where a person needs human contact, human connections and expression and experience, which they aren't getting. At what point do we agree that this is a real thing, that it's supposed to be a real thing, and that the reason we're fighting it is because of our own interests and toxic behaviors and because of fears about people who are toxic? I'm not saying we should ignore those people. I'm not saying that we should refuse to partake in adult activities. I am saying that the cost should not be ignored, and the children are suffering because of it. So one last example. When these videos are being made, and I think I've already covered the reasons I believe that they're being made. They are multiple. There's a call at this point to clarify what boundaries are, especially for people who are watching these videos who are young themselves, who are, the viewers who are young, who don't have experience and may not understand that when somebody makes a video for any reason and they're being, sexy or whatever, that is usually their choice. Ideally, they're choosing to make that video. However, and here's the point, this is the big point. When you're going into a store, or if you're at school, or if you're not watching a video that somebody made on purpose, and that person may be dressed in a certain way, it's not the same thing. That is not an invitation to trespass into their space, to stare at them, to be rude, to look up their dress, for example. I'm going to be specific here. To look down their shirt. They're not asking you to do that just because they look nice. They're not making a video necessarily. It's tricky. It's tricky. If you have an invitation, that's one thing. If you don't, you cannot assume that you're welcome to stare at people, let alone record them or be inappropriate in any way. And I don't think this part is being communicated to young people or anybody. There's a boundary, and it hinges on consent and intentions, what they wanted to happen. It runs both directions. It has to be an agreement. So I am a staunch supporter of freedom of expression of any person of any age, and I believe that there are natural needs. There are things that people need to nourish themselves in terms of social contact and proper development, just being experienced and exposed at some point to the world, and vice versa. And without that, we all suffer. The children are the adults of tomorrow. They grow into adults, believe it or not. It sounds silly, but apparently we've all forgotten that. Anyway, this is an 8.5-minute video already. If you have questions or comments, please reach out to whitehotrobot@gmail.com or leave a message below. Have a great day. Thank you.